Hello and welcome back to Global English Podcast, the place where we break down English for you. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Taylor. It's great to be back with all of you.
We are so excited for today's deep dive because we're talking about something that I think affects every single learner out there.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling when you're past the beginner stuff, you feel pretty good, but you just keep hitting the same walls.
Exactly. That's the pain point, right? Like you're having a great chat, everything is flowing, and then suddenly you hear yourself say, I don't know, I'm married with my job instead of to my job for the 100th time. And it's that feeling that the mistake is like permanent, almost set in stone. It's so frustrating.
Like that feeling is completely real. And it has a name, which we'll get into. Today, we are diving deep into some amazing sources, expert advice from linguists and communication psychologists.
Ooh, sounds serious.
It is, but it's also super practical.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to figure out why those habitual repeat mistakes, the ones that feel impossible to fix, why they stick around.
And then, more importantly, how to get rid of them.
Exactly. We're going to give you the strategies to actually break those habits for good.
Okay, so we're talking about more than just grammar rules. We're unpacking, everything from like sophisticated correction methods that teachers use.
We are. And we're going even further. We're going to look at a huge confidence booster that has nothing to do with words at all. It's all about body language.
I love that. And I heard you have a little something special planned for us later.
I do. Speaking of traps, there's a really common one with the word recommend that even advanced learners fall into.
Oh, I think I know that one.
We'll see. I put together a little pop quiz for the end of our deep dive. It's going to test you on that. And also on how to use complex linking words like, even though and even if.
I'm already nervous. Okay, this is going to be a fantastic journey into like the psychology of language and how to actually use it.
It really is.
But before we jump into the absolute core of it, we have a quick mandatory request for you, our listener. If you love this kind of deep dive, please, right now, hit that subscribe button for a Global English Podcast.
And maybe give this episode a like. It really, really helps us reach more learners just like you who want to get past these roadblocks.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. All right, let's get started. Let's confront the enemy, the errors themselves.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole idea that making a mistake feels like a failure. I know when I make one, I feel embarrassed.
Everyone does. But our sources immediately push back on that idea. They argue that mistakes are not something to be ashamed of. In fact, they're essential. They're part of the process.
Essential for progress.
That's the key mindset shift. One linguist we looked at puts it really well. He says that mistakes are literally impossible to avoid when you're trying to master something complex. And language is. It's about as complex as it gets.
Right. So it's not about not making mistakes.
Exactly. The difference between a learner who succeeds and one who gets stuck isn't the number of mistakes they make, it's how they react to them.
So do you see it as a failure and kind of retreat, or do you see it as something else?
Do you see it as an opportunity, a little red flag saying, hey, look over here, this part needs some work? It's a chance to identify a weakness and then, strategically fix it.
That makes so much sense. If you stop trying new words or new grammar the second you mess up, well, you just stop learning.
You stagnate.
But that brings us to the big question for our intermediate audience. What about the error that you know you're making? The one you can hear yourself say, but you can't stop. What happens when a mistake becomes, a permanent feature of your English?
Now you're talking about the concept that plagues so many intermediate learners, especially those who've been speaking English for years without maybe formal instruction. You're talking about fossilization.
Fossilization, okay, that sounds bad, like a dinosaur bone. It sounds permanent. Let's get a really precise definition. What does that mean in language learning?
Right. So fossilization is when a specific language error, it could be a grammar mistake, a pronunciation slip, anything, it becomes so habitual, so deeply ingrained, that it actually feels natural to the person saying it.
So it doesn't even feel like a mistake anymore.
Not at all. It's essentially an incorrect habit that has hardened over time, like concrete setting. And that makes it incredibly resistant to correction later on, even when the student is, really advanced in other areas.
So it's not just a slip of the tongue. It's more like a bug in your brain's software, a piece of bad code that got saved into the main program.
That is the perfect analogy. And we can extend that. Think of it this way. Fossilization is like a small crack in a sidewalk that gets bigger and harder to repair the longer you ignore it.
Ooh, I like that.
When the crack is tiny, right when you first make the mistake, a simple fix works. You can patch it up easily. But if you ignore it for 5 years,
Then you need a jackhammer.
exactly.
Mm.
You have to break up the old hardened concrete and lay a whole new foundation. That incorrect wiring in your brain becomes the default pathway, and it takes so much more effort to unlearn it.
That is actually terrifying. It means the mistakes we're making right now could be setting up these huge roadblocks for our future, more fluent selves.
It can, if they go unchecked.
Our sources had this really interesting anecdote about an advanced learner. This person was almost totally fluent, but they always pronounced thing as sing, just that one sound. Why would that one error stick when everything else was so good?
Because that specific error went, and this is the key phrase, unchecked for too long. Probably in the very early stages of learning. No one corrected it, or maybe they just accepted it so the brain did what it always does.
It got efficient.
It got efficient. It cemented the incorrect sound because it worked. People understood him. So by the time he reached an advanced level, trying to put his tongue between his teeth from it, the sound felt physically weird, unnatural.
Wow, it became muscle memory.
It did. And undoing muscle memory requires painful, focused, targeted practice.
Okay, so we know the consequence is fossilization, but let's dig deeper. What are the root causes? Why do these errors happen in the first place beyond just, not knowing the rule?
The sources are really clear on this. They highlight 4 major categories for why errors happen and why they stick around. And if you can recognize which category your error falls into, you can fix it much more strategically.
Okay, let's break them down. I know you mentioned a couple, but let's go deep on all 4. They were overgeneralization, simplification, ignorance of rule restrictions, and false hypotheses.
That's them. Let's start with the one most people recognize because we all do it. Overgeneralization.
That sounds pretty self-explanatory. You take a rule and you just apply it too generally.
You got it. Overgeneralization is your brain trying to be smart and efficient. It sees a common pattern, like adding ed to make a verb past tense.
A good pattern to learn.
A great pattern. But then the brain over-applies it. It applies it to the exceptions, to the irregular verbs. The learner has correctly identified the pattern, but they haven't learned the boundaries of that pattern.
So that's where you get something like, I bought a new car instead of I bought a new car.
The classic B1 example. The brain is trying to be logical, but it's failed to account for English being, well, gloriously illogical sometimes.
Tell me about it. Okay, so that's overgeneralization. What about the next one? Simplification.
Simplification is all about speed and pressure. It's when the learner, deliberately leaves out or changes parts of the grammar to make it faster or easier to say something.
So it's a conscious choice almost.
Sometimes. Or it happens when you're under pressure and your brain doesn't have the resources to build the full perfect sentence. The classic example is dropping function words, like saying you from where, instead of the full where are you from.
The meaning is clear.
Totally clear.
Yeah.
But the structure is simplified. It's missing the verb are and the correct word order. You're basically trading accuracy for speed.
That makes sense. Okay, let's tackle the other two. Ignorance of rule restrictions. How is that different from overgeneralization? They sound similar.
It's a subtle but important difference.
Yeah.
Overgeneralization is about grammar patterns. Ignorance of rule restrictions is more about vocabulary, specifically, which words can be used in which structures.
Okay.
So the learner might know a structure perfectly, but they apply it to a word that, for whatever reason, is forbidden from being in that structure.
I'm going to need an example for that one.
Okay, a great one is the confusion between the verbs make and do. A learner correctly says, I made a mistake. Perfect.
Right.
But then they might say, I made a photo. It's a classic error, often because in their first language, the same verb is used for both. They're ignoring the specific rule, the restriction, that in English you don't make a photo.
You take a photo.
You take a photo. They know the structure, subject, verb, object, but they don't know the specific lexical rule, the restriction on the verb make.
I see. It's less about a grammar rule, like past tense, and more about knowing which verbs are allowed to be friends with which nouns.
Collocations.
Precisely. Now for the last one. False hypotheses.
This one sounds interesting, like a science experiment gone wrong.
It kind of is. A false hypothesis is when a learner basically creates their own rule. They see some data, maybe a few words that look similar, and they form a hypothesis, a theory, about how English works. But their theory is wrong.
What would that sound like in practice?
Okay, so a learner sees that in English, We can use words like run or play as verbs for activities. They think, okay, action words can be verbs. Then they see the noun fun,
Ah, I see where this is going.
and they create a false hypothesis. Since fun is an activity, it can probably be a verb too. And they say something like, we funned at the party last night.
Which is definitely not correct. Not at all. The mistake came from a logical but wrong assumption. The correct phrase is, of course, we had fun or we enjoyed ourselves. So if you can figure out which of those four, overgeneralization, simplification, rule restriction, or false hypothesis, is causing your error, you're halfway to fixing it.
That is incredibly helpful. It really shifts the focus from just I'm wrong to, okay, why am I wrong? But now for the big strategic question. Let's say you're talking to someone, a teacher, a language partner, and they make one of these mistakes. When is the right moment to jump in and correct them to stop that fossilization from happening?
That is the core question in teaching, and the answer is,
Yeah.
it depends. It's never the same. You first have to decide what your goal is in that specific moment. Are you focusing on accuracy or are you focusing on fluency?
Okay, let's refresh those definitions because they're so important.
Right. Accuracy is your goal when the practice is controlled and focused. The whole point of the exercise is to get the form perfect. Think of, grammar drills or
Yeah.
practicing specific pronunciation sounds.
Okay, targeted practice.
Exactly. Fluency, on the other hand, is the goal when you're just trying to communicate. You're in a discussion, you're telling a story. The main goal is getting your message across, even if the language is a little messy.
So if I'm practicing the difference between ship and sheep, we want accuracy. If I'm telling you about a crazy dream I had last night, we want fluency.
You nailed it. And that context decides when you should correct. If your goal is accuracy, then on-the-spot correction is usually best.
So you interrupt them right away.
You do, because it ensures the learner immediately connects the action with the correct form. This is especially important for those really basic pronunciation mistakes, like someone say, I like eating ships instead of chips. You have to fix that immediately.
But gently.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
It has to be sensitive, not blunt. You don't want to destroy their confidence.
And what about when we want fluency in that lively discussion about my dream?
Then you absolutely need delayed correction.
If you wait.
You wait. If you interrupt someone every 10 seconds while they're trying to tell a story, you kill the momentum. You destroy their confidence.
Yeah, that would be awful.
So instead, the teacher or the partner should just take quiet notes during the conversation. Then afterwards, you can go over the errors. A really common technique is to write the mistakes on a whiteboard, but without any names attached.
Oh, so it's anonymous.
Exactly. That way, the learner can fix the language problem without feeling personally attacked or judged. It sends a clear message. During the chat, your ideas were important. Now, separately, we're going to look at the form.
I love that separation. It makes the whole process feel so much safer. Okay, so now let's get into the how. Let's explore two really sophisticated techniques for doing this correction. First up is one that makes the learner do the work. Elicitation.
Yes, elicitation. It's a technique where you, as the partner, encourage the student to correct themselves rather than just giving them the answer.
So you don't say, that's wrong, say this.
Never. Instead, you use verbal cues, little hints, or maybe an exaggerated tone of voice to guide the learner back to the right answer.
So you're not giving them the finished building, you're just giving them the scaffolding so they can build it themselves.
That's a great way to put it. The main benefit here is self-discovery. When the learner's own brain have to do the work to find the answer, the neural pathway it creates is so much stronger.
That makes sense. It's more likely to stick.
For sure. We have a great analogy for this. Elicitation is like giving someone a treasure map instead of just handing them the gold. They have to do the work of finding it, and because of that, they'll remember where the treasure is forever. It builds true linguistic awareness.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here. Isn't it just faster sometimes? And maybe less confusing to just use explicit correction, to just say, nope, the correct word is went, not good.
That's a fantastic point, and you're right. Explicit correction, just giving the answer, is valuable, especially when you're introducing a completely new rule that the learner has never seen before. It provides certainty.
What?
But if it's a mistake they keep making, a fossilized habit, elicitation is far superior because it forces them to notice the error themselves and then repair it. And that process of self-repair is the very definition of learning.
Okay, let's try it. Let's do a little role play. I'll make a classic B1 mistake, forgetting the third person lies, and you use elicitation to guide me.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm telling you about my friend. She a really hard worker. She go to the library every single day.
Hmm. I understand, but just listen to that part again. She go, or does she?
Oh, right.
Hey, yeah.
She goes to the library.
There you go.
See, that's so cool. You didn't stop me and lecture me about grammar. You just repeated the problem word with a questioning tone, and it made my brain go, wait, something's wrong there.
Exactly. It makes the mistake visible without shutting down the conversation. Now, let's look at an even softer, almost invisible technique. This one is perfect for when your main goal is fluency. It's called recasting.
Recasting. Okay, this sounds like some kind of secret agent language technique.
It kind of is. A recast is when you, the partner, just repeat the learner's incorrect sentence back to them, but you subtly fix the mistake in your repetition. And you do it naturally, as part of the conversation, without ever pointing out that they made an error.
Okay, so if I say something like, yesterday I go to the market.
I would immediately respond, oh, you went to the market. Cool. Did you buy anything interesting?
Ah, I see. So you emphasize the correct word, went, just a little, but then you immediately continue the conversation.
Precisely. It works best in those low-pressure, fluency-focused situations. The speaker is focused on their message, but they're still likely to notice the small change you made in their sentence.
And that's the key, right? The learner has to actually notice the correction for it to work. If they're not paying attention, it's just noise.
That is the big nuance here. It requires the learner to have a certain level of awareness. If the mistake is really, really basic, they might not even notice the recast. In that case, you want to use elicitation or maybe delayed correction instead. Recasts are for fine-tuning.
Okay, let's run through a few examples of recasting to see how flexible it is.
Great idea. We can show how it works in all sorts of different contexts.
Let's start with a formal one. Imagine we're at work.
Okay, so your colleague, who's a learner, says the budget proposal is miss in the folder. It's an urgent situation.
Right.
You wouldn't stop and give a grammar lesson. You'd recast it. You'd say, the budget proposal is missing from the folder. Okay, I'll help you look for it. You've corrected the verb form from is miss to is missing while still focusing on solving the problem.
Perfect. It keeps everything professional. Now, what about something really casual? My friend is complaining.
Okay, they say, ugh, I hate taking showers in the morning. It's a common mistake, dropping the article A.
Right.
You just reply naturally, oh, you hate taking a shower? Yeah, me too sometimes. I'm not a morning person. You've inserted the A so smoothly they might not even realize it was a correction.
I love how subtle that is. Okay, give me a funny or weird one.
Your friend tells you an unbelievable story. They say, I saw a cow fly last week. You respond with shock, but you embed the correction. You'd say, wait, you saw a cow fly? No way. By asking the question, you naturally corrected their past tense fly to the base form needed after saw.
That's brilliant. Okay, two more. Historical context.
A student is talking about history and says, Columbus discovered America in 1492.
A very common present tense mistake.
Yep. You just nod and say, that's right, Columbus discovered America in 1492. That changed everything. You correct the tense and move on.
And finally, a deep philosophical moment.
The learner says something thoughtful like, life is a hard. Another common article mistake.
Right.
You'd respond with empathy. Life is hard, you're right. It really is sometimes. You gently remove the unnecessary A and validate their feeling.
These examples are so powerful because they show that you can give feedback without ever breaking the flow of the conversation. Finding that balance between elicitation and recasting seems like the absolute key to fighting fossilization.
It is. It's about choosing the right tool for the right moment.
All right, now that we know how to correct mistakes, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what to correct. We are going to tackle 6 super common, super persistent grammar mistakes that our intermediate listeners run into all the time.
And for a lot of these, we're going to see how interference from a learner's first language is often the root cause.
Let's start with a big one. Mistake number 1. Using the word even all by itself as a conjunction. I hear this constantly. Someone will say, they continued walking even they felt tired. Why is that single word even so tempting?
It's almost always a direct translation issue. In many other languages, a single word that's equivalent to even can be used to connect two ideas like that. But in English, even by itself just can't do that job. It's not a conjunction on its own.
So it needs a friend. We need to use the full phrase, even though or even if.
Exactly. And before we go further, let's just quickly refresh what a conjunction is. It's just a technical term for a connecting word. Words like and, but, so, because. Their job is to build a bridge between two parts of a sentence and show the logical relationship.
And the relationship changes completely depending on whether we use even though or even if. This is such a critical difference.
It's a huge point of confusion for B1 learners, but mastering it makes your English so much more precise. Let's break it down. Even though is used when you're talking about a fact, a reality, something
Yeah.
that is definitely true. It basically means despite the fact that
Okay, so a real situation. Give me an example.
even though he apologized, I'm still angry. The apology is a real event that happened. It's a fact. And my anger exists despite that fact.
Got it. Reality. So what about even if?
Even if is for hypotheticals, imaginary situations, conditions that might happen or might not. It means regardless of whether this happens.
So it's about possibility, not reality.
Correct. So you could say, I wouldn't forgive him even if he apologized. The apology here is just a possibility in the future. It hasn't happened. I'm talking about a hypothetical condition.
That is such a clear comparison, even though for facts, even if for hypotheticals. So going back to our original sentence, the correct version would be, they continued walking even though they felt tired, because their tiredness was a fact.
Perfect. You've got it. Now let's move on to mistake number 2. The structure with recommend and suggest. Oh, this is a big one. The incorrect sentence I hear all the time is, I recommend you to go.
It feels so right, though. Why is that structure so tempting for learners?
Because so many other English verbs do use that structure. We say, I want you to go, I told you to go, I advised you to go. Learners see that pattern and, they overgeneralize. They assume recommend must work the same way.
It's a trap.
It's a huge trap. Recommend belongs to a special group of verbs that demand a different kind of grammar.
Okay, so what are the correct structures we need to learn?
There are 3, but the most common one for spoken English is recommend plus the gerund, which is the ing form. For example, I recommend visiting the new museum.
Okay, let's pause right there. The gerund. Let's make sure we're crystal clear on what that is.
Right. The gerund is simply the ing form of a verb, like visiting, that is being used as a noun in the sentence. It's not part of a continuous tense here. It's the thing that is being recommended.
I love this analogy for it. The gerund is like a verb wearing a noun's hat. It looks like an action, but it's functioning as a thing. So in your sentence, the activity of visiting is the thing you recommend.
That's a perfect way to think about it. The second structure is much simpler. Recommend plus a noun. Like, can you recommend a good restaurant?
Easy enough. And the third one, you said it's a bit more formal.
It is. You probably wouldn't use this one in a casual chat, but it's important for writing. It's recommend plus that plus subject plus the base form of the verb. For example, the board recommends that the manager postpone the meeting.
Wait, that's interesting. You said postpone, not postpones, even though the manager is a single person. Why the base form?
Ah, you've spotted something very advanced. This is called the subjunctive mood. After certain verbs like recommend, suggest, and insist in formal English, we use the base form of the verb for all subjects. It's a signal of formality and a strong recommendation.
Wow, that's a deep cut. Very cool. Okay, let's move on to mistake number 3. Using will in the if or when clause of a sentence about the future, the classic mistake. I will call you when you will get home. Why does the brain want to put will in both parts?
Because it's logical. Both actions, the calling and the getting home, are in the future. So the learner correctly identifies the time frame. The problem is there's a specific grammar rule for this structure, which we call the first conditional.
And the rule says no will in the condition part of the sentence.
Exactly. The part of the sentence that starts with when, if, as soon as, that's the dependent clause. It sets the condition. And in that clause, you are not allowed to use will.
So what do you use instead?
You have to use the simple present tense. Even though you're talking about the future, the correct sentence is, I will call you when you get home.
Let's cement this with a question example, because I hear this mistake in questions all the time.
A great idea. The incorrect question would be, what will you do if you will have free time?
Right. Double will.
Double will. The correct version must use the simple present in the if clause. What will you do if you have free time? The having of the free time is the condition, so it has to be in the present tense. This is one of those rules you just have to memorize to sound fluent.
All right, let's switch gears a little. We're moving into those tiny little words that cause huge problems, prepositions and word order. Let's start with mistake number 4, the double whammy of married with and explain me. Let's start with a relationship. Why do so many learners say, I'm married with my husband?
Again, it's that direct translation, the L1 interference. In Spanish, for example, you say casado con, which translates literally to married with. So it's a logical assumption.
But in English, it's wrong.
Completely. In standard English, the fixed preposition, the set collocation, is to. You're always married to someone.
Always married to. Is there ever a time when married with is correct?
Yes, but it's very specific and means something different. You can use married with when you're talking about a person and their children. The source gives the example. Ken's married with 3 children, but you're not saying who he is married to. If you want to name the partner, it must be to.
That is a very precise but useful distinction. Okay, now for the second part of this mistake, the phrase, explain me the situation.
Ah, yes. This is a word order error. The verb explain is a bit tricky. It's not a verb that can take a direct object pronoun like me or her right after it. You can't say explain me. It's just ungrammatical.
So what are the correct structures we need to use?
There are 2 main patterns. You can either explain something or you can explain to somebody.
Okay.
So you can say he explained the new policy. That's explain something. But if you want to include the person who received the explanation, you must use the preposition to. So the correct sentence is, she explained the situation to us. Or, can you explain the rules to me?
I see. And the word order is important. It's explain the thing to the person.
That's the crucial pattern. You can't switch it. All right, now let's tackle mistake number 5. Incorrect word order in indirect questions. This is a huge one, a really persistent error. The common mistake is saying something like, I don't know where is Diego.
It's so tempting because the question, where is Diego, is a perfectly correct sentence on its own. So why does adding I don't know at the beginning break it?
Because as soon as you add an introductory phrase like, I don't know, or I wonder, or can you tell me, you're not asking a direct question anymore. You are embedding a question inside another sentence, and we call that an indirect question.
Okay, let's do a deep dive on this. What is the golden rule for forming an indirect question?
The golden rule is this. An indirect question must lose its question format and use normal statement word order. And that word order is subject plus verb. You have to switch it back from the question form.
I like this analogy. The indirect question is like a quiet whisper inside a louder sentence. The loud part of the sentence, the main clause, determines the overall structure.
That's a great way to think about it. So if we apply that to our example, I don't know where is Diego, the question part is Diego. Verb first, then subject. We have to flip it.
To subject first, then verb. So it becomes, I don't know where Diego is.
Exactly. And because the main clause, I don't know, is a statement, the whole sentence now ends with a period, not a question mark.
Right. But what about when the main clause is a question? Like if I start with, do you know, or could you tell me?
That's the second type, and it's a great question. The rule inside the embedded question stays exactly the same. It always uses statement word order, subject plus verb.
Always.
Always. So you have to say, do you know where Helena is? You cannot say, do you know where is Helena? The only difference is that now, because the main clause, do you know, is a question, the whole sentence ends with a question mark.
This is so tricky, but so important for sounding natural. Let's do one more example of that second type. What if the direct question uses do or does, like, when does the class start?
Okay, great example. Direct question. When does the class start? Now, if we make it an indirect question, starting with, could you tell me, we have to get rid of the does and use statement word order.
So it becomes, could you tell me when the class starts?
Exactly. The subject is the class, and the verb is starts. Subject plus verb. Mastering this is a huge step up from B1 to B2 level.
Absolutely. Okay, final grammar fix for this section. Mistake number 6, asking, how is it called?
Oh, a classic direct translation error. So many languages use a word equivalent to how to ask for a name, but in English, this is a fixed rule. We never use how for this.
We always have to use what, so the correct phrases are, what is it called, or what do you call it?
That's the rule. What is for asking for information, like a name? How is for asking about a method or a condition, like how are you, or how does this work? You just have to separate them in your mind.
And speaking of not knowing the name of something, you have a great piece of vocabulary for us here. The perfect word for when you forget a word.
I do. It's a funny-sounding word, but it's 100% real and used by native speakers all the time. The word is whatchamacallit.
Whatchamacallit?
It's basically the placeholder noun you use when your brain just can't find the specific word you're looking for.
How would I use that in a sentence naturally?
You might be in the kitchen and say, hey, could you pass me the whatchamacallit? the thing for flipping pancakes,
Yeah.
a spatula. It signals to the other person that you know what the object is. You just can't access the name right now.
That's brilliant. Knowing how to use what it is a true sign of conversational fluency.
It really is.
Okay, we have spent a lot of time on the words, the rules, the grammar. But let's say your grammar is perfect. What is the other thing that can make you sound confident or really uncertain?
This is where we shift from the verbal to the nonverbal. We have to talk about nonverbal cues because communication is so much more than just words. It's your facial expressions, your posture, your tone of voice,
Your gestures, your eye contact.
all of it. And these nonverbal signals often communicate your true feelings and intentions much more powerfully than your words do.
Why is that? Why are they so powerful that they can completely override our perfect grammar?
Because our brains are hardwired to look for authenticity, for consistency.
Yeah.
And when there's a conflict between what someone is saying and what their body is doing, we almost always believe the body.
Okay.
Our sources use this amazing analogy. Nonverbal communication is the music accompanying your words. If the music is sad and the lyrics are happy, the listener will believe the music.
Wow. That's powerful. So what you're saying is if I, as a learner, am speaking English with perfect grammar, but my shoulders are slumped and I'm looking at the floor.
You'll still be perceived as less confident, maybe even less credible, than someone with slightly messy grammar who is standing tall and making direct eye contact.
So it's about avoiding those mixed signals.
Exactly. If you say, yes, I'm very excited, but you're shaking your head slightly and your voice is flat, the listener's brain is going to get a huge red flag. They will believe your body, not your words. Nonverbal cues are fundamental for building trust and that all-important feeling of rapport.
Okay, so let's get practical. The sources list 5 specific roles that our body language can play. I want to focus on the one that is all about adding power to our message. Let's talk about accenting.
A great choice. The 5 roles are repetition, contradiction, substitution, complementing, and the one you picked, accenting.
So let's define it clearly. What is accenting?
Accenting is when we use our body language specifically to underline, to highlight, or to emphasize a particular part of our verbal message. It's like adding a vocal exclamation point with your body.
The analogy for this one is so clear. Accenting is like using a highlighter on the most important words in a book. You're physically drawing attention to the key idea.
That's it exactly. Let's run through a few examples to see just how powerful it can be in different situations.
Okay, show me. Let's start with a formal business setting.
All right, you're giving a presentation. If you just say, this project is critical, it's fine. But if you say, this project, and as you say the word project, you point decisively at the chart or tap the table.
You've accented it. You've made it more important.
You've told everyone in the room, pay attention to this word. Now, how about a casual setting? Telling a story to a friend.
Okay.
You get some surprising news. You say, I am shocked by that. As you say the word shocked, you make your eyes really wide or raise your eyebrows. Your facial expression is accenting the emotion.
Got it. Okay, now give me a funny or weird one, maybe something a bit more figurative.
Let's say you're describing a really, really long movie. You could say, it was the longest movie I have ever seen. And as you say longest, you do this big, slow, dramatic sweep with your hand. The gesture is accenting the feeling of endless time.
I can picture that perfectly. Okay, what about a historical context, like someone giving a powerful speech?
Think about all the videos you've seen of great speakers. When they reach the most important part of their message, they might say, we must fight for freedom. And as they say freedom, they clench their fist. That physical action gives the words so much more weight and gravity.
It really does. And finally, a quiet, philosophical moment.
You're having a deep conversation. You might say, real truth requires self-reflection. And as you say the verb requires, you give a slow, very purposeful nod. The nod accents the necessity of that action. It makes it feel profound.
Using these cues on purpose can make you seem so much more powerful and convincing, even if you're a little nervous about your English. And this leads us perfectly to the idea of the power pose.
Yes.
How can just changing the way I stand actually make me feel more confident? It seems like magic.
It's not magic. It's based on research from social psychology. The theory is that by adopting an open, expansive posture, what they call a power pose, you can actually influence your own brain chemistry.
So you're saying it's not just fake it till you make it. There's something real, something biological happening.
That's the theory. They found that holding these open postures, like standing with your hands on your hips or leaning back in a chair with your arms spread,
Hmm.
can even just for a few minutes raise your levels of testosterone, which is associated with dominance, and lower your levels of cortisol, the stress hormone.
Wow. So before a big interview or difficult conversation, I could literally go into the bathroom for 2 minutes, do a power pose, and potentially feel less stressed.
That's the idea. By making your body big and open, you send a signal to your own brain that you are safe, powerful, and not stressed. And that feeling can carry over when you walk into the room.
Okay, so let's get super practical. How do I do it? What are the physical actions I need to take to signal that confidence and lower that anxiety?
You want to think about creating space. So stand with your feet about shoulder width apart. Pull your shoulders back and down. Get them away from your ears. Uncross your arms and your legs. Keep your hands open. Maybe you rest them on your hips. You're taking up space. You're projecting strength and openness.
I'm doing it right now, and I actually do feel a little different.
See, it sends a signal to your own brain that you're in charge, which can make a huge difference in high-stakes situations.
Okay, so we've fixed our physical posture. Now let's talk about the physical production of sound. Let's talk about pronunciation. Why is clear pronunciation so important for intermediate learners? It's not just about accent, right?
Not at all. Pronunciation is so much more than accent. It's about clarity. And research shows that listeners often, subconsciously, judge your overall competence based on how easy it is to understand you. If they have to work hard to understand your pronunciation, they might think your ideas are less clear too.
That's not fair, but I can see how it would happen.
Right. So good pronunciation, clear consonants, correct vowels, and proper stress and intonation is key to being seen as professional and trustworthy.
Okay, let's start with the consonant sound that causes more problems than any other. The sounds.
The big one.
Yeah.
This is such a hurdle because that specific sound just doesn't exist in a huge number of the world's languages. So learners naturally substitute a sound that's close, like an S or a T or a D. Tink instead of think.
So what is the one single mandatory physical action we need to practice to fix this?
It's all about tongue position. You must place the tip of your tongue gently between your teeth, not behind them, between them. If your tongue is inside your mouth, you physically cannot make the sound.
Okay, tongue between the teeth, and then there are two different versions of the sound, right?
That's the next step. The first one, sizz, is unvoiced. It's just air. No vibration in your throat. Think of words like think, mouth. You're just blowing air between your tongue and teeth.
Okay, just air.
The second one, A, is voiced. Now you have to turn on your voice box. You have to make your vocal cords vibrate. Think of words like this. That, mother, breathe. You should feel a buzzing in your throat.
That's the key difference, the vibration. And the best way to practice telling these sounds apart is by using something called minimal pairs. Let's define that term.
Minimal pairs are just pairs of words that are exactly the same, except for one single sound. Like ship and sheep, or fan and van. They're used in pronunciation practice to train your ear and your mouth to focus on just that one tiny difference.
So how would we use minimal pairs to fix that common problem of saying sing instead of thing?
You would practice the two words back to back. Sin, thin. Sin, thin. You force your brain and your mouth to feel the difference. For sin, the tongue is inside. For thin, the tongue comes between the teeth. That targeted practice is the only way to break that fossilized habit.
Okay, let's move from consonants to vowels. Beyond just short versus long vowels, there is one vowel sound in English that is more common than any other, and most learners don't even know its name. Let's talk about the schwa.
The secret king of English sounds. The schwa is the neutral, relaxed, lazy vowel sound. It just sounds like a soft, quick,
And why is it so important for B1 learners to master this lazy sound?
because English is a stress-timed language. That means we punch or emphasize certain syllables in a word, and we rush through or relax the other ones. The schwa is the sound we use in those relaxed, unstressed syllables.
I like this analogy. The schwa is like a relaxed, sleepy vowel sound that happens naturally when we're not paying attention to a syllable.
That's a great way to put it. If you pronounce every vowel fully and clearly, you end up with a very robotic, unnatural rhythm. You have to learn to use the schwa to sound natural.
So where would I find this sound in common words?
It's everywhere. Think of the word about. We stress the second syllable, bout. So the A at the beginning becomes a schwa, or the word teacher. The air at the end is a schwa, or problem. The O in the second syllable, velum, is a schwa. Native speakers swallow this sound to keep the rhythm of the language flowing.
And that idea of rhythm leads us perfectly to the final piece of the pronunciation puzzle, stress. We have to talk about word stress and sentence stress.
This is so critical. Let's start with word stress. Many English words completely change their meaning or their function depending on which syllable you stress.
Give us the classic noun versus verb example.
Okay, the word record. If I stress the first syllable, record, it's a noun. It's a vinyl record or a written record.
Right.
But if I stress the second syllable, record, it's a verb. It's the action of recording sound. Same spelling, different stress, completely different word. It's the same for present, the noun, versus present, the verb.
That's a huge deal. And how does that idea of stress work across a whole sentence? What is sentence stress?
In a sentence, we don't stress every word equally. We stress the most important words, the ones that carry the meaning. We call these the content words.
So the nouns, the main verbs, the adjectives, the adverbs.
Exactly. And we usually don't stress the small grammar words, the function words, like a, the I of in, is. We say them quickly and often use the schwa sound.
So if I want to book a table, I would say, I'd like to book a table for tonight.
Perfect. You hear that rhythm. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, strong. That rhythm is what makes English sound like English. Mastering it tells your listener which ideas are the most important, and that makes you so much easier to understand.
Okay, this has been amazing. We have fixed our grammar, we've learned how to correct ourselves, we've boosted our nonverbal confidence. Now, let's put it all together. Let's apply this to the single most common high-stakes thing a learner has to do: give a strong, confident self-introduction.
A great introduction is the final boss. It requires more than just good grammar. It requires something we call pragmatic competence.
Okay, that's another big academic-sounding phrase, pragmatic competence. We have to break that down. What does it mean?
Pragmatic competence is the ability to know not just what to say, the grammar, the vocabulary, but how to say it. It's choosing the right level of formality, the right tone for the specific social situation you're in.
I love the analogy for this one. Pragmatic competence is like choosing the right clothes for the right event. You don't wear a swimsuit to a job interview.
You definitely don't. You have to assess the situation first. Am I at a professional networking event? That requires a formal style. Or am I at a casual party with friends? That requires an informal style.
So in a formal setting, my greeting would be very different. I'd focus on my role. Something like, "Good morning, my name is Jordan, and I'm the project manager."
Exactly. But in a casual setting, you'd want to be much more relaxed and focus on connection. Something like, "Hey, I'm Jordan. What brings you here tonight?" It's all about matching your language to the context.
All right, let's build the perfect script. Our sources recommend a really powerful 8-step structure that gives you a reliable blueprint for any introduction.
It does. It starts with the basics and then builds up to strategy and connection.
Okay, let's just list the 8 steps first so we have the roadmap.
Okay, step 1, greeting. 2, name.
Sure.
3, location. 4, real occupation. 5, background highlight. 6, purpose. 7, personal detail. And finally, step 8, closing with a question.
Okay, the first 4 are pretty much just facts about you. Let's spend our time on the really interesting ones. Steps 5, 6, and 7. These are what make an introduction strategic, not just informative. Let's start with step 5, background highlight.
This is where you move beyond simple sentences and show off a little bit of your English skill. Instead of just saying, "I'm an engineer," you give it some context. You use more complex structures.
Like what?
You could use the present perfect continuous. I've been working in marketing for about 5 years. Or a complex sentence. I grew up in France, but I've been living here in London for the last 2 years. You're painting a quick picture.
That sounds so much more fluent. Okay, now for the most important one for professional situations. Step 6, purpose. Why are you introducing yourself right now?
This turns your introduction from a simple hello into a strategic move. You state your goal clearly and directly. If you're at a job fair, you say, "I'm here today because I'm looking for an internship in software development."
So you're not wasting anyone's time.
Exactly. Or at a conference, you could say, "My goal is to connect with other professionals in my field." A clear purpose gives your introduction direction and makes you seem focused and professional.
I love that. And finally, step 7, personal detail. This is where we stop being a resume and start being a human being.
This is the connection builder. You share one small, non-work-related hobby or interest that can act as, like, social bait. It gives the other person an easy way to connect with you.
So something like,
In my free time, I love hiking and photography. It's simple, but it immediately gives the other person an opening to say, "Oh, I love hiking too. Where do you usually go?" And now you're having a real conversation. You're building rapport.
Speaking of personal details and daily routines, we have to take a quick pause here for a common error that pops up when people talk about their hobbies. Let's talk about collocations.
Yes, a collocation is a pair or group of words that just naturally go together in English. Using the wrong partner word, even if your grammar is perfect, can make your English sound unnatural.
What's a good way to think about collocations?
The analogy is simple. Collocations are like two best friends who always walk together. You almost never see them apart. You make a mistake, you don't do a mistake. You take a shower, you don't make a shower. Ignoring these fixed pairs is a classic sign of an intermediate speaker.
Let's really dig into that common point of confusion, the difference between collocations with take and make.
Let's do it. We'll use our expansion technique to really cement the feeling of the word take.
Okay, start with a formal example for using take.
The board of directors will now take a break to consider the proposal. The fixed phrase is always, take a break.
Good. Now a very casual one.
Okay, everyone, squeeze in. Let's take a selfie.
Perfect. How about a funny or weird one, maybe an idiom?
If someone is nervous to try something new, you can encourage them by saying, don't worry, just take a stab at it. It's an idiom that means give it a try.
I like that one. Okay, a historical example.
In the 1950s, Rosa Parks took a stand against segregation by refusing to give up her seat on the bus. To take a stand is a very powerful collocation.
It is. And finally, a more philosophical one.
Ultimately, you have to take responsibility for your own actions.
These are so good. It's so clear that you make a decision, but you take a photo. You make a mess, but you take a nap. Learning these pairs is just as important as learning grammar rules.
It absolutely is. Okay, back to our 8-step introduction. We've done the first 7 steps. We end with step 8, the closing, which is all about the transition sentence.
The conversation launchpad. Why is this so critical for learners?
Because if you don't have one, your introduction just stops. It ends with a thud. You've just given a monologue, and now there's an awkward silence.
We've all been there.
The whole goal is to move from a one-way speech to a two-way conversation. That's how you build that feeling of rapport.
Let's define rapport again in this context.
Rapport is that feeling of a smooth, harmonious connection. It's when the conversation just flows, and you feel like you and the other person are on the same wavelength.
And the analogy for rapport is?
Rapport is like having a perfectly tuned instrument between two people. The communication is easy and sounds good. Without rapport, it's all clashing notes and awkward pauses.
So to create that harmony, we need to transition smoothly by asking a question.
You have to. You have to hand the conversational baton over to the other person. For B1 learners, keep it simple. After you've shared your personal detail, just say, so that's a little bit about me. What about you? Or, I'd love to hear what brings you here. It's a clear invitation for them to speak.
Okay, we've covered so much ground. Mindset, corrections, body language, introductions. Let's wrap up with our quick-fire common mistakes segment. 3 final pitfalls that learners fall into because of direct translation.
These are the final polishing points that can really elevate your English.
Let's start with mistake number 1, confusing prepositions of purpose. For plus ing versus to plus verb. So is it okay for me to say, they came here for seeing you?
That is a very common but incorrect structure. The rule is this. We use to plus the base form of the verb, the infinitive, to talk about the intention or the reason why a person does something.
So the purpose of the action.
Exactly. The correct sentence is, they came here to see you. Their intention was to see you.
Okay, so intention is to plus verb. When do we use for plus ing?
We use for plus the ing form, the gerund, to talk about the function or purpose of a thing, an object. So you would say, this knife is designed for cutting bread. The function of the knife is cutting.
Ah, so it's intention of a person versus function of a thing. Is there any exception? Can we ever use for a person's intention?
Yes, but only when it's followed by a noun, not a verb. You can say, we went to the cafe for a coffee. Coffee is a noun, so for is okay there.
That is crystal clear. Okay, mistake number 2, mixing up adjectives and adverbs. I hear this all the time in casual speech. Someone says, it was a real nice day, or I ran quick to the store.
Right. And you might hear native speakers say that informally. But in any kind of professional or clear communication, you need to use the correct adverb form. Adverbs, which very often end in -ly, are the words we use to describe verbs or other adjectives.
So how do we polish up those 2 sentences to make them sound more professional?
The first one becomes, it was a really nice day. The adverb really is describing the adjective nice. And the second one becomes, I ran quickly to the store. The adverb quickly is describing the verb ran.
Got it. And the final common mistake, the word choice when you're agreeing with something, saying, I think yes.
This is almost always a direct translation. Someone asks, is this the right way? And the learner responds, I think yes. It's understandable, but it sounds a little unnatural in English.
So what are the natural sounding alternatives to I think yes?
The most common one by far is just, I think so. That's what you'll hear 99% of the time. You could also say, I believe so, or be more specific and say, yes, I think it is, but I think so is your best bet.
Okay, I think so. It's time for the pop quiz you promised at the beginning.
It is time. Let's see if you and all of you listening have internalized these key concepts. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Question 1. We talked about the 4 sources of error. If a learner says, I made a photo instead of I took a photo, which of the 4 sources is the cause?
Ooh, okay. They know the structure I made a, but they're using it with the wrong word. That is ignorance of rule restrictions.
Spot on. Perfect. Question 2. When you're talking about the future with an if clause, what tense must you use in that if clause?
You have to use the simple present, no will.
Correct. Question 3. If you want to correct a mistake, but you want the learner to find the answer themselves to make the learning stronger, which correction technique do you use?
You give them the treasure map, not the gold. That is elicitation.
Excellent. Question 4. In our 8-step introduction, which step is the strategic one where you clearly state your goal for the conversation?
That is step 6, purpose.
Perfect. And for the final question, question 5, I'm going to give you an incorrect, indirect question. You have to fix the word order. The sentence is, I'm not sure where is the station.
Okay, it's an indirect question, so it needs statement word order, subject plus verb. The correct version is, I'm not sure where the station is.
5 out of 5, fantastic job. And fantastic job to all of you listening at home. If you got 4 or more of those right, you have really locked in some critical intermediate concepts today.
That was a great review. Okay, let's quickly summarize the biggest takeaways from this deep dive.
For me, the top 3 concepts learned today were, first, understanding fossilization and why it's so important to fix errors early. Second, mastering pragmatic competence, choosing the right language for the right situation. And third, using that 8-step introduction as a reliable structure for making a great first impression.
And we learned some amazing new vocabulary. My top 5 words for today are elicitation, gerund, accenting, the amazing whatchamacallit, and rapport.
Great list. Now it's time for your micro-challenge for the week. We want you to put a few of these ideas into practice.
What have you got for us?
We challenge you to combine 3 things. First, stand in front of a mirror and get into a power pose. Second, while holding that pose, deliver your own 8-step casual introduction out loud. And third, while you're speaking, really focus on your sentence stress, emphasizing the content words.
And the final step.
Record yourself doing it on your phone. Then listen back, not to judge yourself, but to listen for just one fossilized error that you can start working on this week.
That act of listening to yourself is so powerful. It's the fastest way to get past that intermediate plateau. Remember, confidence comes from practice, not from being perfect.
So well said.
And one final reminder from us. Don't forget to like this deep dive and subscribe to Global English Podcast. We are here every week, breaking down the strategies that will help you move closer to mastery.
We really appreciate you spending this time with us and investing in your English.
I'm Jordan. See you next time.
And I'm Taylor. Bye, everyone.